power on.
Whew, the man of tomorrow is here to do, well, I'm going to try and make it shorter. I always say this. I'm like, well, I'm going to do this review or I'm going to talk about this or whatever. And it only needs to be 30 minutes. It doesn't have to go that long. And then we go 2 hours, right? But what I am doing here is an episode that I don't think has to be very long, but at the same time, I think will be incredibly useful for many Sovryn Tech listeners. And in fact, if you listen to a recent movie review that Mrs. Sovryn and I did, I believe it was I think it was during the movie review. Maybe it was during the supplemental she was recently on. But, Ellen had said, hey, you should do an episode about your daily rounds. Well, apparently she's not the only one, because then the emails came in and were asking, what are these daily rounds that you do as far as websites that you download content from, which was the context of what I was talking about. So this isn't like daily rounds I do of news sources that I look at. Maybe you'd find that interesting as well. I do have very specific sites that I go to for news, but roundabout, this does get into where I get a lot of my news from, and we'll talk about it when we get to that specific site. But anyway, if you want to email me asking me about my favorite news sources, maybe some of you will find that interesting and you'll let me know, and I'll, it's something that I can record. Just email questions at sovryntech.com, of course. So let's take a moment to talk about what my daily rounds are, okay? My daily rounds are websites that I go to regularly to download varying content. This includes music, because I don't do streaming, I don't do, Spotify or any of those other ones. I guess like I have a Pandora account, but I don't do like Apple Music. I don't do any of that. I download all my music. There's like a certain amount of music that I keep available for offline use, but then there's, most of it I end up putting on my NAS and on varying backups, and I access it generally through Plex, even though Plex was a little weird for a little while on DSM 7.0 for Synology NASs. But so, I do actually Synology's option for streaming music, just their audio center or audio station, they call it. That's actually pretty good. But generally, I just, I use Plex for streaming my music, but it's all music that I download and tag myself. And I'll probably get into that a little bit more when we talk about that. But other things that I do daily rounds for. Comic books. I go and download comic books. Now, obviously, in case you're not getting it, I get all of this stuff more or less for free, which might be of interest to you. Or what really on Sovryn Tech we like to call the public library, as it were. And these aren't just torrent sites, though we will get into some of those. Other things that I download are magazines. I know, like that probably surprises some people that, magazines are like worth downloading. Why don't you just go to websites? Well, we'll talk about that when we get into those as well. Another thing I download are audiobooks. And you might be saying, but Stallion, like, don't you have this really large Audible collection because you've had an account with Audible for, over 15 years or something, or around 15 years? I do have a large Audible collection, but not everything is on Audible. In fact, there are a lot of things that have been removed from Audible over the years that say I was too late to get. I'd have it like saved on my wish list and all right, yeah, I'll get it next month with my credits or whatever. But that I'd be too late to get because they'd get taken down for whatever licensing, and copyright reasons. So yes, I need to download audiobooks. Now, the audiobooks that I get through Audible, I can strip the DRM from them. That's the other thing I get too are ebooks. I guess I'll talk about that. But admittedly with ebooks, I'm usually not looking for the latest and greatest book. And unless it's something really popular, like Star Wars ebooks will usually come out same day or over, the following couple days. Some of the rarer stuff, I definitely still have to buy. And because it's rare, usually I don't mind. Or because it's not popular, I usually don't mind because I really want to support the author. And it's important to bring up here, I really don't want this episode to turn into a argument around ethics, okay? You do what you do. I'm going to present you what I do, and, you know, your tolerances and ideologies and whatever are what they are, okay? That's not what this episode is about. If you have specific questions, if you think somehow that what I am doing and what I am about to describe to you is deplorable or not helpful, you ask the questions at sovryntech.com, and I'll do a whole Q&A episode around it. I am happy to do that. And I guarantee you it'll be quite civil, the discussion. Okay. I'm not going to attack a listener. You know, I mean, if a listener is like not a long-time listener, they happen to catch a show and they want to, like, I don't know, whatever, send their hate mail at me. Okay. Well, that's somebody that I'll, you know, kind of bark back at. Right. But an actual listener, you know, who wants to intellectually engage, no, I'm not going to get in an argument or yell at you, even if you disagree. So if you want to debate the ethics around all of this, around, you know, torrenting, around download sites, and all of that, or, you know, quote unquote, illicit download sites, you know, bring it on. And I'd love to have the discussion about it. But for the more egoist bent, in my audience, I present you with some of my favorite sites on the internet, because I more or less go to them every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. And, you know, for those who think, oh, no, I should buy this stuff or blah, blah, blah. You know, I just want to bring up an example that is hilarious and really proves to me that deep down, we're all anarchists, you know, that we're just like, we're really naturally born anarchists. Or at least most of us are. Every time, you know, I'm losing brain cells, meaning I'm watching YouTube. Every time that I'm watching YouTube and some very popular channel, you know, with over 1 million subscribers, right? And getting all the likes in the fucking world, all the thumbs up, all the comments. Every time they advertise a VPN, what is the go-to example that they use? They say, if you want to basically get around geographic lockouts on content on, say, Netflix or whatever, that's the example almost all of them use, okay, is to get around, you know, that geographic block. Do you realize you are breaking the law in doing that? In fact, I would argue you're breaking the law much in the same way that anybody that goes to these download sites is breaking the law. You are arguing for a borderless society. You are arguing for a world without IP. Two things that have been, you know, pillars throughout Sovryn Tech's entire history. Borders are bullshit. They are imaginary lines. IP is bullshit. You truly cannot own an idea nor the photons that hit your face. So all of these popular YouTubers are, again, essentially arguing for a borderless society and rampant law breaking when they tell you use a VPN to watch content that's not available in Netflix US, but is available in Netflix Europe. And by the definitions of, you know, of intellectual property, of IP, that is essentially theft because, say, for example, how Star Trek, okay, modern Star Trek, also known as fan fiction, like Discovery or Picard, modern Star Trek there is no Paramount Plus in Europe. Okay. There is, so in Europe, Star Trek just airs on Netflix, modern Star Trek, as to where in the US it's on Paramount Plus. Every time you are using, you know, using a VPN to get past the geographic block to watch Star Trek on Netflix in Europe, you're essentially taking money away from the workers at Paramount Plus. Okay. Because there is a cut that gets, you know, or an amount of money that gets lost just on, you know, the fact that they end up airing it on Netflix and not their own subscriber service. Okay. Now, I mean, there's reasons that they do that. There's logistical reasons why Paramount does that, with Star Trek. But the point remains that, if theft is somebody's livelihood, because this is how theft gets argued with IP, is that somebody's livelihood is being threatened and they are, losing out on imaginary money that there is no guarantee that they would get if the technology didn't exist to get access to the content in the first place. But regardless, that's their argument, is that there's imaginary money being lost, theoretical money being lost. That's happening every time you do that. So it's just, it's ironic, right? That everybody's like, oh yeah, obey your laws, borders matter, or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then you have every fucking YouTuber from the most banal to the extreme telling you to go and be an anarchist, telling you to ignore borders and break the law. I mean, hey, and I applaud it, please. Like, I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying people think I'm nuts or the bad guy. I don't know. I only reach out to, anywhere between 10 to 20,000 people every week. These are people that reach out to millions. You tell me who the great evil is. Ooh. Anyway, so if you want to join me in serving the great evil, which I proudly do, sorry, excuse me. Maybe we can edit that out. I have some websites for you to visit along with me. Now, to be clear, some of these sites, you may have to pay some kind of fee to use them well, though most of them do offer some kind of free service. It's just, it's the old saying of you spend either money or time. And if you're not willing to spend a certain amount of money to get access to content, and really you're just paying for like servers, you're not actually paying for the content. You'll pay for it in that it's going to be at a, to allow it to be for free. And so the servers aren't overloaded wherever they happen to be. You are going to deal with a throttled download speed. Okay. But I'll tell you what's worthwhile to pay for. And some of these you can really pay for one service and it'll work across multiple sites. So we'll get into that. The other part that I want to make clear here is that the way that I list these sites in the show notes is going to be odd, okay? Because I don't want to link directly to the sites. I don't want them all to show up in that way. You can find any of these sites even using Google, okay? There's no special trick to it. But to put it in simplest terms, there's a level of heat that there is no need to bring on here, okay? If you want this stuff, you could have found it anyway. I'm just kind of, curating it, and there's no need to do the big link thing. And also, I want it to be abundantly clear that I am not getting any kind of commission or affiliate money for talking about these sites. That's another reason I will not link to them. I do not really do any affiliate programs. Okay. If I do, I make it very clear that it is an ad. Right? That I am doing an ad and that, there might be an affiliate commission involved with that. Now, all of that said, let's get into the list. And here we go. So we'll start it off with my music rounds. This is the one that probably takes up the most terabytes overall for me. I dare not say the amount of terabytes that my music collection takes up. But this is the one that's really, really precious to me. Now, more so than any of the others, right? Because with the others, there are, overall, except for maybe with the comic books, and even that's a different, we could get into that. But with the other types of downloads that I do, there are quote unquote legitimate options that are usually pretty good. For me to engage in, right? For example, I don't download, nothing I'm going to talk about here is for, maybe one thing, but I don't really go out looking for TV shows or movies or anything like that. I don't actively, when I say daily rounds, what I mean by that is that I am I can't keep track of everything that's coming out there. So I go to these sites on a daily basis to see what's out there and what is new and what's available and so on. So it's almost like hunting down news while at the same time hunting down the content itself, okay, or the media itself. Also, the reason for doing this daily, and this is most true for music, because a lot of sites that offer music to download have been taken down over the years. I mean, we could talk about all the torrent sites that have come and gone, over the past 15 years or so. But like music sites that are just, they're websites that you go to. They're not even torrent sites. You can download them directly, say from Mega or from TurboBit or, whatever it happens to be, Novafile, whatever the service is. Those get taken down pretty regularly, or will get blocked by certain, IPs, or certain IPs will get blocked that won't allow access to them. And then you do have to use a VPN. I'm a big fan of using a VPN, in case anyone was confused about my conversation there a couple minutes ago. So that's part of why I make it the daily rounds. Okay. Even if I don't get to tagging and uploading the music until, 2 weeks, who knows, weeks later, and getting them into Plex, I'm checking and downloading daily, because there's the chance that not just tomorrow, but that in the next 5 minutes, frankly, the website could get taken down, and then I, will have missed out on whatever they happen to put out there. So the music websites, I mean, here's the thing with downloading music and why I download music. And what got me started on this, like I used to buy CDs. I mean, it was insane, the collection of CDs that I had. I mean, I don't even want to get into the amount of money I must have spent on it. To be clear, and this is a point I was going to get to a minute ago, is that I don't go looking for TVs, movies, whatever else. Like if I love a TV show or a movie, that is where I put my money where my mouth is, and I buy the Blu-ray, or if I have to, the DVD. Like I'll buy the disc if it's available. There's a lot of times where it's just not. Or with movies, you run into where, I mean, this is a really funny thing. So here, I'll give you an example I'll give you a movie, then I'll give a TV series. Okay. A movie that I just adore. I am not saying it is not Citizen Kane. It is not some great flick, but I adore this movie. Guyver, not MacGyver, though I love MacGyver. I have those DVDs. Guyver 2, okay, as in Guyver, the bio-boosted armor, right? So they made, I think it was like USA, at the time, at the cable network. USA made like a TV movie that was a sequel to the original Guyver film. Now I have the original Guyver film that was released by Arrow Films. They did a special edition release, I don't know, a few months ago. And I picked that up. Okay. Actually I think I even had it pre-ordered. So I had it the instant it came out, and $20 and it's done. And it's a great movie. I mean, Mark Hamill's in it, it's great stuff. So they made a sequel to it, a TV sequel, essentially, called Guyver 2 Dark Hero. Kick-ass film. I love this movie. Corny as fuck, 90s production levels. You know how that goes. Made for TV, but still, I love this movie so much. The DVD is actually available of it. Okay. I don't own the DVD though. What I do have is a 720p copy of the movie. Far better than what DVD can put out there. Again, the movie's not available on Blu-ray anywhere. Okay. Even if it was region free, I'd pick it up. But a 720p copy that must be on some streaming service somewhere, and maybe they're just upscaling it, but it definitely looks better than the DVD. All right. So that's one where, okay, yeah, I go to a torrent site, whatever. And like, if there isn't a Blu-ray available, here's my thought process with movies, I guess, before we get into the music, but just to explain things a little bit. With downloading movies, if a Blu-ray isn't available, which is my standard, okay, 1080p, and I don't give a shit about 4K. I've already covered that subject this year even, or in the past year anyway. So, Blu-ray is my standard. If the Blu-ray doesn't exist, I'll pick up the DVD. But before I go to pick up the DVD, I will go to torrent sites. We'll talk about some in this. I will go to torrent sites and I will see if somehow for some streaming service, like Netflix or something, the movie exists in a higher resolution than the DVD that I could buy. And then I will download that movie. Okay. And you can imagine like how rare the movie is that, that I would have to do that with. But again, if it existed in a format at the resolution that I want, say 1080p or so, I'd go ahead and I'd put the money down. All right. So it's a matter of necessity here. Now, same thing with a TV series. Here's a TV series that a lot of people probably don't remember. Again, I'm very used to that I'm, basically me or Rob are the only people that will remember varying shows. But there's a show called Relic Hunter. Okay. I love the show. Went 3 seasons amazingly. It's basically Tomb Raider, but with Tia Carrere. Okay. Tia Carrere, of course, she's done a bunch of things, probably most famous for Wayne's World. But anyway, and it's a corny ass show, but I love that show. Here's the thing. Go try to buy the DVDs. Now, look, I just told you, nobody fucking remembers this show. Nobody. I've never talked to anybody else who even remembers an episode, let alone the show. Or I guess I should say that the other way around. I don't remember. I've talked to people. Nobody remembers the show, let alone an episode where I could like have a conversation with them. Remember that time in season 3 when she can't have that conversation. Okay. I'm sure Ellen and I will get to watching it eventually, but until then, I'm screwed. So here's the funny thing. Now, obviously there are some people out there that remember it because it got released on DVD and they must have sold out to some degree because now look, again, nobody remembers the show. All right. Or at least not a large enough mass of people. There is no good reason why to buy all 3 seasons of Relic Hunter on DVD that it should cost $100. That's what it costs. Okay. You can buy season 1 and 2 for $20, but season 3, if you can even find it singly, is going to cost you like $70 or something like that. Now that's stupid, especially for a DVD. Like there's no, I understand economics. I understand supply and demand and blah, blah, blah. You realize who you're listening to, right? Okay. But there's no good argument for that. So this is a show where absolutely, like, no, I'm not going to pay that fucking exorbitant price. If it was a really great show, maybe, right? Like, okay, if it was Sequest and God damn it, I just have to have it on DVD with special features. And if it had special features, I might justify that price tag, and whenever I could afford it, I'd go for it. Okay. But that's just not to be. Like, there's no special features on these DVDs, so like you're not really getting a bonus anyway. But then I go online to look for it, to download it, and holy shit, somebody's got 720p copies of this show. Oh, even better. So I'm actually getting better than the DVD, right? Again, who the hell's going to make that much money off of this thing? So for a multitude of reasons, I feel justified anyway because fuck IP, but for a multitude of reasons, I feel absolutely justified. And actually I'm getting a better deal, like better quality, better appreciation of the art made, that being the TV series, by torrenting it. Because really, there's even a, what you could call a fan or a super fan prohibitive cost. Now, this leads directly into the conversation about downloading music. And I've brought this up, specific example, I've brought up hundreds of times on Sovryn Tech on why you're absolutely, go ahead and fucking download that music. Okay. Let's set the Wayback Machine. Okay. To about 2004. And there is a band, legendary band, in my opinion. There is a band who just released their second album called Dragon Force. That's the name of the band. Second album is Sonic Firestorm. First album was Valley of the Damned. Today, almost everybody knows who Dragon Force is, and by the time their third album would come out in Human Rampage in 2005, it would be in Guitar Hero, and it's like the last level in Guitar Hero, and then suddenly, Dragon Force is a global act, and Inhuman Rampage is getting released, around the world. Now, again, we're talking 2004, before Inhuman Rampage came out. And really, even after Inhuman Rampage came out, because again, sure, that album made a big splash, but their first two albums, a lot of people didn't even have any, I don't think they even had a clue that, Dragon Force had entire albums. All they knew was what they heard in Guitar Hero. And even that would be a little bit after, Inhuman Rampage came out in 2005. So, but then, like, say you're online and on whatever site that you happen to, that like maybe covers, I don't know, not indie music, but you get what I mean by that with indie. And you find out about Dragon Force and you hear it and then just go, holy shit. And then you go to Amazon or whatever music site you want to go to. CD Baby used to be a thing. There was lots of them. And you try to get your hands on the CD, and the CD to get in America, not because it's rare in Europe, it's not, but to get it over here, you got to spend, $40 to $120 to get your hands on this CD. That's outrageous. Why? Just because it's locked, landlocked in Europe, essentially. And I mean, this has been a thing for a while where in Japan, a lot of CDs for very famous bands, even like, say, Metallica or whatever, will come with bonus tracks that are only in Japan. You have to pay a premium to, get the Japanese version of these albums and get these songs. And sometimes these bonus tracks, frankly, are the best songs of the entire album and better than even what gets released as singles from the album. And so what a loss to a superfan, to not have access to it. Now, this has nothing to do with supply and demand. I mean, it has to do with a reverse issue. I don't want to get into the economics around it of like the fact that, well, in Japan, it's easy for them to get, albums from America, but they want to incentivize Japanese to buy directly from, CD suppliers there. Point being, ultimately, Japanese bonus tracks are to screw over Japanese fans. Like as far as, money wise. And in turn, I think it screws all the other fans who have to pay an exorbitant amount, to try and get access to those songs. So the reason that I go to these websites is because, I want these rare versions of a lot of these albums, and I want these albums that maybe never hit American shores. Even if I was still into CD collecting, it would become such an expensive proposition. Not because necessarily these things are rare, but because, whatever, the music industry is pulling the bullshit that they're pulling. Or frankly, and I can admit this, the band's being fucking greedy and releasing like 20 different limited editions of their album with one different track on each one. And I mean, it gets insane when, like, come on, let's love the music and let's be honest that you're not really making the money off of the fucking, album sales anymore. You're making it off of the concerts. And do I go to concerts? Oh, minus the present climate that we're in, the Golden Stallion goes to a shit ton of concerts. So it's far from that I'm not willing to, support these bands. I'm all for it. And I've also been buying their albums for years anyway, back when that was the more practical thing or, the thing to do. And also these music sites I go to offer albums that have, for all intents and purposes, been lost to time. There is a real sonic archaeology being done by these websites. I mean, there's also, like a bit of sonic caretaking or, musical caretaking being done, in essentially backing these things up. But there's also discovery going on. There's archaeology, being done in finding albums that, holy shit, here's this, Son of Edge by Styx that was supposed to be a sequel to Edge of Eternity that never actually got released. It's like the bootleg scene. Now, obviously, my main genre is, metal, hard rock, right? Rock, and, maybe like 80s pop. And so the sites that I do my daily rounds for music are in that vein. But I also am really into, and as I've said many times on Sovryn Tech, if soundtracks, as in scores for films, TV shows, or video games, if that was a genre, that would actually be my top genre in music, because that's what I listen to most of the time are, orchestral soundtracks and the like. So those sites are a part of this as well, part of my daily rounds, that not only metal hard rock sites, but also, soundtrack sites. So let's go with the first one. And this is pretty much the first site that I go to all the time. And that is GetMetal CLUB. So GetMetal CLUB, not GetMetalClub.com, but I mean, it is GetMetal Club, but it's GetMetal.club. Again, I won't put it in the link in the show notes like that. But you're hearing it here. Okay. So GetMetal.club is, I mean, they have like every kind of metal and hard rock and even some pop, like Phil Collins will show up on there, Rick Springfield, some others, people that I'm a big fan of. But like all the metal you can imagine, shows up on there. Sometimes there's early releases that will happen where an album that's not supposed to come out until Friday, which is the general music release day in the industry. They'll have it like on Tuesday because actually that's when it technically gets shipped to stores, right? To pack the CDs or the vinyl or whatever. So sometimes you'll get things early, but for new music or remastered and re-releases that are very commonplace today, like digital remastering and so on, will be usually available on Thursdays or Fridays. Thursdays when it starts, and Fridays is when anything that was supposed to come out that week will have come out. And so I certainly spend a lot more time downloading on Thursdays and Fridays, but these sites, again, they engage in a certain, musical or sonic archaeology in that they're finding and, ripping to digital, to MP3s or FLACs a lot. Sometimes they offer FLAC, FLAC. And they'll post those. So really it's worth checking every day, and I basically know where I stopped when I see, an album that I remembered the day previous. This is one where I will, on Thursdays and Fridays, I will check multiple times a day to see what comes out. GetMetal.club has been taken down before and comes back. So that's part of the reason I do check it daily also. But usually, this will be the first thing that I look at in the morning is, okay, what's available? And I usually only have to flip through like 2 or 3 pages to see what the newest releases are. I don't download that much from GetMetal.club, but it's definitely a great resource if you're into metal, especially if you're like into screamo and more, extreme shit. They've got all you could want there and from all over the world, and they organize things nicely. Like they tell you what country that it comes from and everything. It's really, really cool. So GetMetal.club is the first site that I go to. The second site that I go to, and this is one that I used to check like 5-6 times a day because it has also gotten taken down at points. And that's 0 Day Rocks. So that's the number 0 day, DAY, ROX. So 0dayrocks.org. And this site, holy shit. I don't know who runs this. I don't know who's doing it, but they get some of the rarest music, especially in hard rock and metal and sometimes pop. Just out there. Like it's amazing what they make available. Okay. And on this site, for example, like Gene Simmons's Vault that cost $1,000, which is just whatever. Do what you want, Gene. Okay. But Gene Simmons's Vault, which was supposed to be impossible to get digital copies of, and you had to pay $1,000 for it, right? Well, he's got it on 0 Day Rocks, or something that I don't know a whole lot of people that remembered, but like when Motley Crue back in 1998, when they came out with their greatest hits album, I guess technically their second greatest hits album, their first one was Decade of Decadence. But when they came out with their greatest hits album, they did this thing where they had multicolored covers and they had a bonus disc for the first however many hundreds of thousands of it that they released. That, and the bonus, there was like 4 different bonus discs. And so you'd technically have to buy the greatest hits album multiple times to get all of the bonus discs, right? Even if you could find them. Well, this site happened to have them. They re-release all of these different like Rock Candy remasters and everything on there. It's just 0 Day Rocks is, to me, as a music fan, the most important site on the internet. Like just straight up, like it's miraculous the stuff that they have on there. And so important, to preserve that music. There's a lot of times where they put up stuff that's only ever been released on cassette and they're putting up the MP3s of it. It's fucking brilliant. Now I don't check that really anymore because we need to get into what I want to bring up a service here in a second that you may want to pay for. The reason that I don't check 0 Day Rocks anymore is because the guy who runs it or the group that runs it said, hey, hash out $8 a month or $8 to us. And I forget what that time frame is for that $8. But hand us $8 and we will email you to whatever email address you want. We will email you the links to all of our music. Okay. That we release that day at the end of the day. So you don't have to keep looking and wonder like, holy shit, is he going to put out something else? Because I can't be the only one that was feeling that. And I love that service. And so I gladly paid the $8, and I've only had to pay it once and I've been, getting their emails for months now. Well worth it. And they'll send me like mega links or Google Drive links, whatever. I mean, there's lots of different ways to go about getting it just in the email that they sent. Now, normally I had to go to that site. And when you go to that site, you can get it for free. You don't have to pay the $8 at all. You can get it for free, but they will use a service. They've used a couple different ones, but now they use TurboBit, turbobit.net. Okay. And TurboBit, this is one that multiple sites I'm going to talk about here use as their hosting service for the files. So I pay for, depending upon, whatever, like usually it's every 6 months and it's like $30 or so. Sometimes you get a discount code. It's like $30 for 6 months. I will pay the $30 for 6 months to get and I download albums in seconds with that. Again, for 6 months, you're only spending $30. You could spend that on one album easy. And I use that. TurboBit works for 0 Day Rocks. It also is the premier hosting service for GetMetal.club. So really, if you have TurboBit, you're getting both, right? Which is great. I think it's worthwhile with 0 Day Rocks to, pay to get their emails, but it's there. There's another site that uses turbobit.net, but I recommend, and you can use Bitcoin to get your account for TurboBit. They have all different kinds of payment services for it. I've never been scammed by it. You want to do your due diligence, but I've never been scammed by it. There's a lot of resellers that you can buy TurboBit accounts with if you want to go, really anonymous with it. That's totally up to you. But yeah, TurboBit has been absolutely worth it to me to get. And I really don't pay for any other hosting service or, to download. Any other sites that uses something else like NovaFile or something like that, I'll deal with, because the alternative is you still download from TurboBit, but you don't get the premium speeds, right? Where you download the album in seconds. Instead, it takes 20 minutes to an hour to do that. Other sites, I'll deal with taking it 20 minutes to an hour. Okay. But the amount of albums that I download from 0 Day Rocks and from GetMetal.club makes it absolutely worthwhile, because again, you either spend money or time. It's worth the money to pay for the premium access. And again, it's only $30 for 6 months. And let's be clear here. These are albums that are not appearing on torrent sites, just not. Okay. And especially like a lot of stuff on 0 Day Rocks never shows up on GetMetal.club, even though GetMetal.club is a much larger venue and it has a much broader amount of music. 0 Day Rocks is very curated. So anyway, so that's where I get a lot of my traditional, or, metal, hard rock, but a lot of my traditional music are from those two sites. Now, the other sites that I go to for my soundtracks, for my movie and TV soundtracks, yeah, sometimes you can find these on torrent sites if it's big enough, but a lot of the rarer releases where I used to pay, even up to just a few years ago, where I paid top dollar to buy the physical soundtrack because they wouldn't release it on digital. I'd gladly pay for the digital if I had to too. Like releases from Entrada or La La Land Records and so on. But there's a website, downloadsoundtracks.com. Now it's actually download-soundtracks.com. And this is a site where, this is one where I don't pay for the premium access or anything. And I just deal with it downloading for free. But it's easy enough to just, have your VPN access other VPN servers. And because it'll only let you, the service that they use will only let you, it was a hotlink.cc. It will only let you download for free one file per 24 hours, but it's easy enough, to wait the hour to download and then in an hour switch VPNs, right? Or switch servers and then you can download, then you can go back to the site and download more music. Now, this site, downloadsoundtracks.com, they've been taken down in the past as well. And in fact, now they're to the point where I don't think they get taken down. Now just varying IPs get blocked. VPN IPs, probably because they know what are doing what I just described to you. But there's always ways to do it. And if it's from your normal house IP and you want to give it a shot, I mean, it's up to you. Everybody has different risks, tolerance risks, or risk tolerances. Sorry. There's really, really rare soundtracks on here too. Some fan made stuff as well, which is really worthwhile to me. And I've found to be very beneficial. Like, speaking of MacGyver, like and I still can't believe this. There's no official MacGyver soundtrack release out there that I know of. There are soundtrack sets that if you wanted to buy, because of their limited nature at the time, where maybe they only did a printing of 1,000 back in the 90s, like say Battlestar Galactica or Airwolf or some others. There is a MacGyver soundtrack on here, but those soundtracks that now, like say, like the Airwolf Themes album, which can sell for thousands of dollars, you can download right off the site, for free. And there's no reason to pay that. It's just stupid. People that want the physical CD, they'll pay that. Like that's their thing. They're collecting and that's for them to do. But people that just want to enjoy like the great music of Sylvester LeVay from Airwolf, go fucking download it. Really. Anyway, so that's where I get, and there's some video game soundtracks on there as well, but that's usually where I grab my movie and TV soundtracks. But video game soundtracks. Now, this is a website that I just fairly recently discovered. And it is brilliant. And I think I've talked about it in previous episodes. I might have mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. And that is downloads, the word downloads.kh, K is in Kevin, H is in hell, khinsider.com. So khinsider.com, but downloads at first. This site is like hidden in the KH stands for Kingdom Hearts, the Kingdom Hearts video game series, is like hidden in a Kingdom Hearts news site, but it's there. And it looks like a very basic site and it's amazing. So this is one where I do pay for the premium access and it chalks up to like same deal where it's like for 6 months, I don't know, it's like $15 or something like that. But they have almost, does that qualify as petabytes? I mean, they have so many video game soundtracks, or so many gigabytes worth, like 8,000 gigabytes of video game soundtracks, and they add more every day. And it's really nice because they give you a nice, simple latest soundtracks uploaded so you can look and see. So that's why it's part of my daily rounds. If you don't pay for the premium access, you have to download the albums a song at a time. So you can get them for free, and they don't take long to download. But you do have to go through the process of downloading one song at a time, where if you pay for the premium access, you can download, the soundtracks, the albums all at once. And there are albums that good luck even finding them in other parts of the world than Japan. But even if you do, you're probably going to pay far more than what the retail price was. This is a gorgeous, brilliant, beautiful site. They are doing wonderful work here. Maybe my top site next to Zero Day Rocks. But that's downloads.khinsider.com, and it just says video game music at the top. Anything like, there's these massive soundtrack collections for Gradius or Gradius or Gradius or however people want to say that. Amazing. Just go there and check it out. Like put shit in the search box and it'll blow your mind, what's available there. So that's another part of my daily rounds as far as music. And I think that really covers music overall. I'll mention that on Thursdays and Fridays, to get the music outside of soundtracks or metal and hard rock, I will go to TorrentGalaxy. So that's, torrentgalaxy.to. I will go there and see what like pop music or whatever weird thing is available. And sometimes there are soundtracks that are available there that are also available on download-soundtracks.com. And I'll download them, I'll torrent them because that's faster. But yeah, sometimes I will check that. Torrent Galaxy is great if you're looking for like the latest web releases of whatever movie is coming out in theaters and on the internet at the same time, right? Or home video. And while the Pirate Bay is still around, TorrentGalaxy is probably the biggest torrent site out there at the moment. I do still use Pirate Bay at times. I will use 1337x.to at times. But I don't really, they're not part of my daily search, but you know, they're there if I need them. The next site is, so that covers all the music. So let's keep it with audio. Let's talk about audiobooks. I really only have one major site that I go to for this. The torrent sites I mentioned will often have audiobooks as well. But I go to Audiobookbay. So it's the word audiobook, then Bay, B-A-Y, audiobookbay.nl. And this is a site where it's essentially a torrent site. You do have to sign up for an account, but all they ask for, hell, I don't even think they ask for an email address. You just got to make an account. And they get a lot of the stuff that's quote unquote only available on Audible. They don't get everything though. Part of the reason I still keep an Audible account is because there is a lot of stuff that gets released on Audible that never or has yet to show up on Audiobookbay. But the vice, or the inverse is also true, where there's a lot of stuff that's on Audiobookbay that's not available on Audible. For example, let's take one of the greatest Star Wars books of all time, Shadows of the Empire from the old EU. Now, there's a version of Shadows of the Empire available on Audible, but it's an abridged version. That's only like 2 hours. On audiobookbay.nl, you can get the full, like 10-hour version of the audiobook version of Shadows of the Empire. Now, granted, Disney lately has been re-releasing Legends books as audiobooks, so maybe, at some point, Shadows of the Empire will get released on that. But for now, this is the only way to get some of this shit. Some of these audiobooks, much like the metal music I was talking about, only ever put out on cassette. So again, it's not only impractical to acquire the damn, audiobook, but then, you got to buy a cassette player to even play it. And I know cassettes are actually kind of back in vogue, but come on, go for it. So that's really my go-to outside of traditional torrent sites. That's really my go-to to get audiobooks. Let's move on from that, okay? Because again, we really don't have to spend too much time on these. So again, all of these I go to at least once a day, if not multiple times a day. These are my daily rounds for downloads. The next one, let's go to, we'll go to the books. We'll go to comic books, okay? With comic books, there are more sites than this if you're looking for older stuff, but they are not part of my daily rounds. The comic book site I go to that's part of my daily rounds is GetComics.info. Now, let's be abundantly clear. They don't have everything. There are certain publishers. They have Marvel, DC, Image, Aftershock. Just about most of the comic book publishing companies that you can think of, they do. But there are some that they miss, okay, at times. So it's not perfect. And you're basically, you can look up Hot Comics or newcomics.info or something like that may have it. But getcomics.info is great. And this is one where you don't have to pay a dime. And you can donate to it, to their, monthly server costs, and they make it available on tons of services. It's on site. It's also at Zippy Share. They'll make a mega link for it. Sometimes there'll even be a torrent link. But you don't have to pay for this at all. And you download the comic books in seconds. Obviously for comic books, the big day is Wednesday, right? Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the big days for that. But I check them every day because they'll bring stuff from back catalogs. Recently they released 4 gigabytes of Star Trek Fact Files, the complete Star Trek Fact Files collection, which is getting re-released in book form, actually, by Eagle Moss lately, which I appreciate that they do that. But Star Trek Fact Files were brilliant technical breakdowns. Anyway, check it out. They have, new comics and lots of old stuff. It's the reason I make it part of my daily rounds. That site has also been taken down at times. And I just want to make sure that I'm getting the latest thing, say, before it goes down. We'll get into that subject in a minute as well. So that's where I go for my comic books. Get Comics, G-E-T, GetComics, COMICS.info, I-N-F-O. Now, another site that actually will parallel a lot of what Get Comics has on offer, but is more for magazines, is Down. So like down, going down, D-O-W-N, DownMagaz, M-A-G-A-Z, as in magazine, Magaz, okay, M-A-G-A-Z.net. So it's DownMagaz.net. Here is another site where a TurboBit account will do wonders for you, okay? I mean, the average magazine PDF is anywhere between 30 megabytes to 200 megabytes. And so if you download them at a throttled speed, it takes you anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, not much unlike a music album. If you have TurboBit, you download them in seconds once again. So this is another site where, again, this is the value of TurboBit, right? You get music, and now you find out, well, holy shit, I can get all of these magazines. And what a selection this site has. Because in other parts of the world, in America, you might feel like magazines have died. Even if you walked into a Barnes & Noble, it might not look like it. But in America, you might feel like magazines have died. Well, in Europe, absolutely not. In fact, particularly in Britain, it's almost like I don't know what phrase I want to use, but I was going to say like a national mascot. I mean, like they just won't let magazines die there. Probably because of the long history of the zine scene, as it were. That really, in many ways, started and thrived in Britain and Europe in general as a way to transmit information pre-internet. I mean, it was also in America too, but certainly, it was a big deal overseas. And just magazines are still a huge deal there. And all of them are, these are not like, usually they're not scans. They're just like professionally available PDFs that if you lived in Europe, you could probably purchase for however much amount of money. But they get American versions of many of these magazines as well. But you can download Scientific American, you can download Popular Mechanics, you can download Retro Gamer, probably my favorite magazine. You can download Men's Health, you can download How It Works. Two magazines out of Britain that if you've never checked them out are absolutely worthwhile, are All About History and All About Space. And actually both of those magazines will have specials that'll come out, which kind of compile like articles around a certain subject. And these are just fucking priceless. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. There's porn mags. I really don't go after those, but they're there. The main things I like, and you can see it in like my kind of my browser, not my browser history, but like in the search tab history, where it's, muscular development, all about, I'll just type out all about, so I get all about history and all about space, retro gamer, Star Wars, Star Trek. And that's it. Because, if you want to get Star Wars Insider, or again, this site will also sometimes post audiobooks as well as comic books, and even ebooks. So another great place to have that TurboBit account. But magazines, Mother Earth News, like magazine, anything you could think of. And there's even a lot of great, like, manuals, or not necessarily manuals, but there are magazines overseas that kind of like how we used to have PC World, and we still do kind of have those, but how we used to have a lot of like tech magazines in the US, they're still a big deal over in Europe. And they will release like magazines that teach you Python, that teach you, whatever, or are manuals for Android phones and all this other stuff. And these are great guides that I think are absolutely worthwhile. I love magazines because they are essentially a slower and less clickbaity, because there's no clicks. It's a magazine. Even though a digital magazine, you could still go off a link, but anyway, but you get what I mean? Like it's a more well thought out and better compiled, less rushed version of the internet, essentially, right? That's how I feel like magazines are. They are a snapshot in time of information. And I think that's totally worthwhile because information on the internet is too fast, meaning that a lot of it is opinion and often reaction, as to where magazines can actually be, more active, instead of reactive. And they take their time because they only come out once a month, perhaps, to get it right. So I'm a huge fan of magazines and think that they are, far more important today really than they've ever been. So DownMagaz.net is totally worthwhile, for you to check out. As far as ebooks, see, now I don't really make a daily round for ebooks. I don't really look to see what new books have come out because holy shit, that list is insane. What books come out on any given day? Just say like on Kindle, through the Kindle publishing platform alone. Holy fuck. You'd spend your whole day just trying to keep up with that. So you can't really do that. But I will mention that I use what, is often called Z Library or onelib.us. And that's the number one LIB, as in library, LIB, one LIB.us. There's also a Onion site for Z Library. Go ahead and use that, of course. But anyway, that's where I grab my ebooks. But usually I'm only going after ebooks after I've heard about them, which is another great reason to have magazines or audiobooks or whatever. Sometimes I will, like if the new John Norman book is coming out, like I'm going to buy the book on Kindle. Okay. And I'll give John Norman the $7. And actually he's done, very well with the Gore series, since ebooks became a thing, right? But books like that, I usually also won't find on Z Library. So, with books, I'd be willing to buy them. Okay. I really am. But at the same time, when it's a book like The Mana Machine, that costs anywhere from $500 to $3,000 to get your hands on a copy. No, I'll do what I need to do to be able to get my hands on that book. And then I'll get it scanned and then I'll put it on Z Library, or someone will put it on Z Library. Sorry. And then it's available for everybody there. Okay. But I don't think there's any practical way to really do like a daily round, a daily scoop on what new books are coming out. That's completely fucking impractical. It's hard enough to do on Audible. I can't imagine doing, and even that has the filter of, okay, what actually got made into an audiobook? That's really not practical. But there you go. There are my daily rounds. These are the sites that I go to pretty much every day. Sometimes multiple times a day. Zero Day Rocks, GetMetal.club, TorrentGalaxy when I need to, audiobookbay.nl, GetComics.info, download-soundtracks.com, downloads.khinsider.com, DownMagaz.net, and of course, Z Library and whatever, URL you use for that. Now, another reason that I do this by the day is that I think the time is fast approaching. Yes, we'll always find ways around it. I know that. Okay. Because we, as in, the, the geeks, as it were, are much smarter than the people in power. We'll always find a way around it, but the time is coming where I think the squeeze is just going to be so fucking tight on access to a lot of this media, that it is going to become very cost prohibitive to even do the more circumventing ways of getting your hands on it. And so I consider myself to very much be a librarian in that I will make sure, even if I can't categorize it all right now, or I just have to shove it on some 16 terabyte drive until, 5 years from now when I can finally get to it, whatever. Okay. I will get it now because the day will come when I won't be able to so easily get access to it. There will be a time. Can I listen to all the music that I download? No, not right now. But there will be a time when that flow will, go from, an open hose to less than a trickle. And when that time comes, I would prefer to not be without my art. To say nothing of I would almost say the fact, because it's already happening, that censorship is so widespread that a lot of this stuff, even if it is available, is not available in the original way that it was presented because somebody got offended. or because an artist wants to rewrite history and pretend that they didn't say that so they don't get canceled. So even if I can't take it all in now, there will be a time where I will be able to take it in because I won't be spending perhaps as much time getting my hands on it. But there will be a time where I will be able to take it in, and I will have that somewhat more immutable record than most of what came before, without, the powers that be censoring it, editing it, or, just making it unavailable in whatever form or fashion. This is the same reason that, when I can, I buy out of print books and get them scanned digitally and make them available online for everybody to download so that these things do not get lost. Because, like Ray Bradbury, said in Fahrenheit 451, the firemen are coming. In fact, they're already here. And they don't have to even burn the books anymore. Now they just have to put it behind a paywall or worse, delete it. So while many who would hear an episode like this would say that my moral obligation is to support and perhaps feed the artist or the teams behind these things. No. If there were moral obligations, and there aren't, but if there were, the moral obligation would be to preserve the art. That's the ethical stance. It's preservation. We only need to look at like the gaming industry and, emulation and ROM, and ROMs and all that stuff. To see the importance of that. How many amazing video games, truly great video games, would we lose out on the opportunity to play, if there wasn't the ROM or, game preserving and emulation communities out there? Because, whatever company that used to exist and tanked lost the licensing, or they lost the code, which is very common, or whatever else. But somebody took the time to, either reverse engineer or emulate things to make games playable that the industry, by and large, doesn't care about. But it's not like they're not great games. And we'd miss out on those things. What a shame, to miss out on the work of those designers and so on. What a shame to miss out on perhaps the original vision of a lot of things. So I would argue, and again, I'm not going to get into the big argument around this, but I would argue that the more ethical position is not to pay, but to preserve. And that matters. And so I do it on the daily. These are my daily rounds. And I get tons and tons of joy and pleasure out of all of it. And, as a hedonist, purpose in life is pleasure. Well, I'm doing a hell of a job. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I want to end this episode with a heartfelt thank you to the resources that I mentioned in this episode. Thank you for what you are doing. You are doing incredibly important work. If my audience doesn't stand behind you, I sure as fuck do. And this show stands behind you for everything that it stands. I thank you for your service and keep the information flowing free. That's it for this episode. Just a little something fun, and it still ended up going an hour. Anyway, more Sovryn Tech to come. I will see all of you, on the other side.